Imagine waking up one day and realizing that every limitation, every doubt, and every fear holding you back was never truly yours. It was planted there, conditioned into you by years of unconscious programming. What if, instead of being a prisoner to old beliefs, you could take control of your own mind and reshape it to guarantee success? What if you could brainwash yourself, not in a way that weakens you, but in a way that makes you unstoppable? The unconscious mind is the hidden architect of human reality. Though people believe they operate from logic and conscious intention, the vast majority of their thoughts, behaviors, and reactions are dictated by unseen forces buried deep within their psyche. The unconscious is not just a passive storage of memories and instincts. It is an active system shaping perception, filtering reality, and dictating what is possible. If someone wishes to reprogram themselves for success, they must first recognize that their unconscious mind has already been programmed, whether by society, childhood experiences, trauma, or cultural narratives. The question is not whether they have been conditioned, but whether they are aware of it and willing to reshape it. The unconscious mind is formed long before rational thought develops. As a child, every experience, every word spoken by a parent, every moment of rejection or praise is absorbed without question. The unconscious mind does not analyze, it accepts and integrates. If a child repeatedly hears that they are not good enough, not intelligent enough, not worthy, these ideas become embedded within them as absolute truths. These beliefs become the foundation upon which their perception of reality is built. When they grow older, they do not question these beliefs. They simply experience the world in a way that confirms them. They unconsciously seek out relationships, careers, and situations that reinforce what they already believe to be true, even if those beliefs are harmful. The power of the unconscious mind is so great that it can override conscious effort. If someone sets a goal to achieve success but holds an unconscious belief that they are destined to struggle, their unconscious mind will ensure that they fail. They may find themselves procrastinating, making irrational decisions, or feeling inexplicably unmotivated at crucial moments. This is not because they lack discipline or intelligence, but because their deeper programming is stronger than their conscious desires. The unconscious does not respond to willpower alone. It requires reprogramming at its core. One of the most significant aspects of the unconscious is that it does not distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. This is why visualization and repetition are such powerful tools for self-transformation. The mind will accept a thought or image as reality if it is experienced with enough emotional intensity and repetition. This is how fears and insecurities are formed, through repeated emotional reinforcement of negative ideas. But the same principle can be applied in the opposite direction. By consistently exposing the mind to new, empowering beliefs and images, one can begin to replace old narratives with new ones. However, this is not an overnight process. The unconscious resists change because it equates familiarity with safety. It clings to what is known, even if what is known is suffering. To harness the power of the unconscious mind for success, one must first become deeply aware of their existing programming. This requires introspection, observing thoughts without judgment, and tracing patterns back to their origin. Once the root beliefs are identified, they can be consciously rewritten through deliberate repetition, emotional engagement, and symbolic reinforcement. The unconscious mind is not an enemy to be fought, but a force to be understood and directed. Those who master this process will find that success is not achieved through mere effort, but through alignment between the conscious and unconscious realms of the mind. The way a person sees themselves determines the limits of their success. Identity is not just a surface-level concept. It is the foundation upon which all thoughts, decisions, and actions are built. If someone identifies as incapable, unworthy, or destined to fail, their unconscious mind will shape their reality to confirm that belief. This happens not because the world is against them, but because the mind filters experiences in a way that aligns with its internal narrative. Every opportunity, every challenge, and every setback will be interpreted through the lens of their identity, reinforcing the cycle they are trapped in. Many people attempt to change their lives by modifying external behaviors, waking up earlier, working harder, or setting new goals, without addressing the deeper issue of self-perception. While these changes may bring temporary improvements, they often fail in the long run because they are in conflict with the unconscious self-image. If a person believes they are not meant to be successful, they may work hard, but will unconsciously sabotage themselves at crucial moments. They will make small but significant mistakes, hesitate when they should act, or feel an inexplicable lack of motivation just when they need it most. This is not a failure of discipline. It is the mind ensuring that reality remains consistent with the identity it has constructed. Identity is formed through experience, repetition, and emotional reinforcement. If a person was repeatedly told as a child that they were not good enough, this belief will shape how they approach the world. If they experienced rejection, failure, or disappointment early in life, they may unconsciously expect similar outcomes in adulthood. These early impressions become the foundation upon which their sense of self is built. Even when they intellectually recognize that they are capable, their unconscious mind holds on to the old narrative, creating an internal conflict that makes progress difficult. To truly reprogram oneself for success, one must go beyond changing habits and actively reconstruct their identity. This is done by consciously choosing a new self-image and reinforcing it through thoughts, actions, and experiences. If someone wants to be successful, they must not only act like a successful person, but think, feel, and believe as one. This process requires consistency, as the unconscious mind resists sudden change. Just as a negative identity was formed over years of repetition, a new identity must be reinforced through daily practices, such as affirmations, visualization, and deliberate action, aligned with the desired self-concept. The environment a person surrounds themselves with also plays a crucial role in shaping identity. The people they interact with, the information they consume, and the habits they maintain all feed into their unconscious mind. If they wish to become someone who succeeds, they must immerse themselves in an environment that reflects that reality. They must engage with individuals who embody the traits they seek to develop, consume knowledge that supports their transformation, and create daily rituals that align with their new identity. Over time, this intentional reinforcement will shift their unconscious beliefs, allowing their external reality to catch up with the new internal framework. Transformation is not just about what one does, it is about who one becomes. To brainwash oneself for success, one must first rewrite the story they tell themselves about who they are. When identity shifts, everything else follows. The unconscious mind is not only shaped by positive aspirations, but also by the hidden, repressed aspects of the self. These are the thoughts, desires, fears, and instincts that have been deemed unacceptable, dangerous, or unworthy. Rather than confronting these elements, the mind pushes them into the unconscious, where they remain unexamined, but not inactive. They manifest in unexpected ways: self-sabotage, unexplained anxieties, destructive habits, and patterns of failure that seem to repeat despite conscious efforts to change. This unseen force is what some call the shadow, and without integrating it, success remains elusive, because the hidden self is always working against the conscious desires. The shadow is formed throughout life, but especially in childhood, when the mind begins categorizing behaviors as acceptable or unacceptable based on societal norms, parental expectations, and personal experiences. A child who is repeatedly told that their ambition is selfish may repress their drive for success, only to later find themselves procrastinating when an opportunity arises. A person who was shamed for seeking attention may unconsciously hold themselves back from leadership roles, even if they crave recognition. These unconscious beliefs act like invisible barriers, preventing movement beyond a certain threshold of achievement. They do not appear as conscious thoughts, but as emotions, impulses, and limitations that feel impossible to overcome. Suppressing the shadow does not make it disappear. Instead, it finds indirect ways to exert influence. It surfaces in the form of envy toward those who succeed, resentment toward authority, unexplained feelings of inadequacy, or destructive impulses that seem to come from nowhere. People who struggle with self-sabotage often find themselves saying, "I don't know why I did that," or "It felt like something took over me." This is the shadow demanding recognition. It does not act rationally. It acts instinctively, seeking to restore the balance that suppression has disrupted. When it is ignored, it grows stronger, undermining conscious efforts at transformation. To reprogram the mind for success, one must not suppress the shadow but integrate it. This does not mean indulging in destructive tendencies, but rather acknowledging them and directing their energy toward a higher purpose. The suppressed ambition, the denied desire for recognition, the hidden fears, these must be faced with honesty rather than buried under false positivity. This process involves self-reflection, journaling, or even visualization exercises where one engages with the shadow rather than resisting it. By doing so, the unconscious mind becomes an ally rather than an adversary. Once the shadow is acknowledged, its energy can be harnessed. The ambition that was once viewed as selfish can become a force for personal and professional success. The fear of failure, rather than paralyzing, can serve as motivation to prepare and act decisively. The traits once considered weaknesses can be redefined as strengths when properly directed. True success is not achieved by eliminating the darker parts of oneself, but by integrating them into a cohesive, empowered identity. When this happens, there is no longer an internal conflict between what the conscious mind desires and what the unconscious mind resists. The two align, and the full potential of the individual is unlocked. The unconscious mind does not operate through logic or rational analysis alone. It is shaped by symbols, patterns, and repetition. Unlike the conscious mind, which understands words and deliberate reasoning, the unconscious mind absorbs meaning through imagery, emotions, and experiences. This is why people often find themselves repeating the same mistakes, engaging in the same habits, or feeling drawn to certain behaviors without fully understanding why. Their unconscious mind has been programmed through repeated exposure to specific ideas, associations, and narratives. If one wishes to brainwash themselves for success, they must take control of the symbols and patterns they engage with daily. Symbols have an extraordinary power over human psychology. A simple image, sound, or phrase can evoke deep emotional responses, influencing actions in ways that go beyond conscious thought. Advertisers, political leaders, and religious institutions have long understood this principle, using symbols to create strong, lasting impressions in the human psyche. The same concept applies on an individual level. If someone constantly surrounds themselves with symbols of struggle, failure, and limitation, whether through the media they consume, the people they associate with, or the words they speak, their unconscious mind will reinforce these ideas as truth. However, if they deliberately expose themselves to symbols of success, strength, and possibility, they can reprogram their subconscious perception of reality. Repetition is another powerful tool in reshaping the unconscious. The more frequently an idea is encountered, the more the mind accepts it as a fundamental truth. This is why affirmations, mantras, and visualization exercises are so effective when done consistently. When a person repeatedly tells themselves they are confident, capable, and destined for success, the conscious mind may resist at first, but over time, the unconscious begins to absorb the message. This process is the same mechanism through which limiting beliefs are formed. If someone was told repeatedly as a child that they are not good enough, their unconscious mind accepted it as a truth, even if reality proves otherwise. The only way to override this programming is through deliberate and sustained repetition of new, empowering beliefs. The environment a person immerses themselves in also plays a critical role in shaping their unconscious mind. Every interaction, every conversation, every visual cue reinforces certain ideas and expectations. If one is surrounded by individuals who complain, doubt themselves, or settle for mediocrity, those patterns become the default programming of the unconscious. On the other hand, if one surrounds themselves with those who strive for excellence, take responsibility, and embody success, their unconscious mind begins to align with these attributes. It is not enough to simply wish for success. One must actively construct an environment that feeds the mind with symbols, ideas, and experiences that support it. The most effective way to reprogram the unconscious is through a combination of symbolic reinforcement, emotional engagement, and repetition. Merely thinking about success is not enough. One must feel it, visualize it, and embed it deeply into their internal world. The mind will always work to confirm what it believes to be true. By taking control of the symbols and patterns that shape those beliefs, one can transform not only their thoughts but their entire reality. The unconscious mind is not influenced by logic alone. It responds most deeply to emotional intensity. A thought or belief that carries strong emotion has a far greater impact than a neutral idea. This is why memories associated with fear, shame, or excitement remain vivid, shaping behavior long after the original experience. The mind does not distinguish between real and imagined emotions. What matters is the intensity of the feeling attached to an idea. If one wishes to reprogram their mind for success, they must understand that their emotional reactions play a crucial role in shaping their beliefs, decisions, and actions. Many individuals struggle to change because they attempt to do so through discipline and willpower alone, ignoring the emotional component. They set goals, create plans, and push themselves forward, but deep inside, they still associate success with fear, stress, or rejection. If someone has repeatedly experienced failure in the past, their unconscious mind might link ambition with disappointment. If they were mocked for trying something new, they may feel an unconscious resistance whenever they attempt to step outside their comfort zone. These emotional imprints are not erased through logic. They must be replaced with new, powerful emotional associations. The most effective way to shift unconscious patterns is to generate strong positive emotions around new beliefs and behaviors. If someone wants to build confidence, it is not enough to simply tell themselves they are confident. They must feel what confidence is like, immerse themselves in situations that reinforce it, and vividly imagine successful outcomes with as much sensory detail as possible. The mind responds best when emotions are involved. This is why visualization, affirmations, and emotional anchoring are so effective. A person who consistently imagines themselves succeeding, while feeling the excitement and pride that success would bring, is actively reprogramming their unconscious mind in a way that words alone cannot achieve. Emotional energy also plays a role in what the mind perceives as important. The brain filters reality, focusing on information that aligns with strong emotions while ignoring the rest. This is why people who are anxious often notice things that confirm their fears, while those who are confident tend to see opportunities instead of obstacles. If someone wants to rewire their perception, they must consistently expose themselves to emotional experiences that reinforce their desired mindset. This means deliberately cultivating excitement, gratitude, and enthusiasm around their goals rather than associating them with stress or pressure. One of the most overlooked aspects of success is learning to control emotional reactions. Many people allow fear, doubt, or frustration to dictate their decisions, unaware that these emotions are often remnants of old programming. By consciously shifting their emotional responses through breathwork, mindfulness, or reframing negative situations, they begin to reshape the way their unconscious mind interprets challenges. The goal is not to suppress emotions, but to direct them in a way that supports success. When an individual learns to attach positive emotions to growth, persistence, and self-discipline, their unconscious mind aligns with their conscious goals, making success feel natural rather than forced. The final step in reprogramming the mind for success is aligning actions with the newly constructed mental framework. No matter how strong a belief or visualization is, it remains incomplete unless reinforced through consistent action. The unconscious mind learns not just through thought and emotion, but through behavior. When someone repeatedly engages in an activity, the mind begins to accept it as a natural and essential part of their identity. This is why habits are so powerful. Each repeated action reinforces a particular self-image, strengthening either success-oriented or self-defeating patterns. Many individuals struggle because they wait for motivation before taking action. They believe they need to feel ready, confident, or inspired before they can move forward. However, this approach places action in the hands of unconscious conditioning, which often resists change. The mind tends to cling to what is familiar, even if it is harmful. If a person has spent years associating success with stress or self-doubt, they will unconsciously avoid the very actions necessary to break free from their limitations. This is why deliberate, consistent action is necessary to override old conditioning. Action is not the result of motivation, it is the cause of it. Each time a person engages in an action aligned with their desired identity, they send a powerful signal to the unconscious mind. They prove to themselves, on a fundamental level, that they are capable of change. If someone sees themselves as weak but begins acting with strength, their mind will eventually adjust to this new reality. If someone has always hesitated but forces themselves to take bold steps daily, hesitation will gradually be replaced by confidence. The unconscious adapts to what is repeatedly demonstrated, not what is merely imagined. This is why taking even the smallest step in the right direction is far more powerful than waiting for the perfect moment to make a massive change. Consistency is crucial. The mind does not respond to occasional bursts of inspiration. It is shaped by what is done repeatedly over time. A single action may feel insignificant, but when repeated daily, it becomes a force that reshapes identity. This is why small, disciplined habits have the power to transform an entire life. Each time an individual acts in alignment with their new mindset, whether through their words, body language, or decisions, they reinforce a new internal reality. The more consistent these actions become, the more automatic and effortless success-oriented behavior will feel. Repetition builds momentum, and momentum makes transformation inevitable. The unconscious mind will eventually accept the new way of being as natural, eliminating internal resistance and making success the default state rather than something that must be forced. This is how true change occurs, not through wishful thinking or fleeting motivation, but through the relentless commitment to embodying success in every action. The mind follows what is demonstrated, and in doing so, it rewires itself to create the reality that has been consciously chosen. The mind is the most powerful tool you possess, but it can either be your greatest weapon or your greatest obstacle. If left unchecked, it absorbs limitations from the world around you, reinforcing fear, doubt, and hesitation. But when you take control, when you consciously rewire your beliefs, harness emotional energy, reshape the symbols that shape you, and align action with intention, you become the architect of your own reality. Success is not reserved for those who are lucky or naturally gifted. It is built by those who take charge of their minds and refuse to let old programming dictate their future. The only question is, will you leave your mind to chance, or will you reprogram it for the life you truly desire?